Hey, we're live at Memorial Stadium. At least Seth, Tao, and Owen Graham are live. This is Mike Schumann back at TDH Studios for a 31-7 win by Indiana over Florida International. We just have some post-game commentary for you here, and I'll start out with you, Seth. I thought the game got off to a really good start for Indiana, a 21-0 lead. Seemed like right off the bat, seemed like their offense was just unstoppable at one point. What did you think about the start that Indiana got off to, especially on the offensive end?
Yeah, I mean, they opened the game with a 3-and-out offensively, and then they just kind of worked out the kinks right from there. And those three straight touchdown drives were, I mean, pretty much everything was clicking. I mean, there's the one kind of rocky drive downfield where the near sack and the kind of miraculous play to Miles Cross to keep things alive on 3rd and 20 something. But
Right.
I mean, that was clearly the play of the game. That ridiculous catch by Miles Cross and the escape by Curtis Rourke to make it happen. But I mean, that's what you probably think Indiana's offense looks like at its. You can't say they're going to peak on August 31st, but when things are clicking, when things are fully clicking for Indiana, that's kind of what it looks like. The pass blocking was looking better at that point in the game. The run blocking was dominant all game. I mean, the holes that the running backs had to run through all game. I mean, if that's what Indiana's run blocking scheme is going to look like, this team is in for a big year on the ground. And it was really looking good for Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison on those three drives.
Yeah, and what do we think about the running game that Indiana had? I mean, how much of that do you feel like was like kind of what FIU was willing to give up? It seemed like FIU was playing kind of an umbrella type defense where they were trying to keep everything in front of them, focus more on, taking away the edge, taking away the passes in the intermediate range. And if Indiana was going to get, 5 yards, it almost seemed like, and maybe I'm wrong here. I couldn't tell if it was Indiana having that effective of a running game or FIU kind of being willing to give that up. What did you see with that?
Well, you can correct
Yeah,
me if you saw anything, but I couldn't really tell, in that sense, if they were just kind of being willing to give that up or what. But what I do know, like I said, it seemed like it's like in the running phase, Indiana was just dominating at the line of scrimmage and, pretty much the whole time. Like, and it wasn't just, one spot. It wasn't just the left guard and left guard, left tackle. Like it was both sides of the line, any direction, any sort of run they had. I mean, the holes that the running backs had to run through, I thought that made the game for Indiana.
Yeah, and Owen, I mean, I think the converse side of the offense was the passing game, which, looked like, the pressure was getting to Curtis Rourke sooner than he would have hoped on multiple occasions. Seth, you mentioned that pass to Miles Cross. He kind of put that ball in harm's way a little bit, and that was one of a few passes that he did that with, in part because he was in trouble. What stood out to you guys as kind of the issue with the passing game?
yeah. I think Kurt Signetti said it best. I think a lot of the pressure was coming off the edge, in most times where Curtis Rourke was under pressure. So I think you look at a few of those positions and a few of those plays and say, maybe that's where some of the pressure was coming from. But other than that, Curtis Rourke, he had to get flushed out of the pocket a few times and maybe uh, throw some balls that he wished he didn't. But Rourke also said, he had a few misreads and a few miscues on offense. So I think, maybe a little bit of the first game jitters for him as well. But outside of that, I think he looked really consistent. I think trying to kind of keep finding that consistency through the second half was kind of the downfall, though.
Another aspect of the passing game that was interesting was the depth chart. We saw a lot of Omar Cooper Jr. in the first half, even before Donovan McCulley got hurt. What did you guys see from Cooper? Were you surprised by his role in this game? And what do we know about McCulley's status?
Well, Kurt Signetti addressed McCauley very briefly. He didn't elaborate much in post game and just said that he was not medically cleared to return after the big hit he took. Said he got in there a little bit, before obviously he did, and he had that one on the play he took the hit on. I mean, that was a good route that he ran, just kind of a 5 yard stop on 3rd and short, and they picked up the first down. He just took a big hit there and gingerly walked off and was pretty much gone the rest of the day. And so we don't really know his status as far as Omar Cooper. I mean, that did surprise me, but it's not like, oh, jaw-dropping shock. Like,
Right.
Omar
Right.
Cooper had a good camp from what what we'd seen. The staff clearly liked him. It was just, he was clearly going to have a role in this offense, but
Right.
it was, I think, a little surprising to see, you knew he was going to have a role, but to see him starting the game and starting over Donovan McCulley, that was a little bit surprising, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Go
also
ahead,
add
Owen.
that I think you look at the stat sheet and Rourke spread the love a lot, and I think when you have a lot of attention on McCauley, Surratt, and Cooper, players like Zach Horton and Miles Price are also going to shine, and that kind of showed in that first touchdown drive, the nice little float pass to Zach Horton, a lot of attention on the outside, so a lot of depth in that area.
And Omar Cooper's stat line would look a lot better today if Tyson Lawton didn't throw that one ball away on the gadget play.
Yes.
Yeah, he was wide open on that one. I think the surprise for me is not so much that Cooper played and had a role. It's just, we all know what we saw from McCauley last year, and we heard what Signetti was saying during the spring and the summer, and we didn't know if that was just kind of blustering or if that was real. I guess that still remains to be seen as to whether Signetti's completely happy with the way McCauley's preparing himself on a day-to-day basis. And, I suspect based on that injury, we won't see McCauley at all next week against Western Illinois. So we might have to wait till the UCLA game to really find out more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speculate on injuries. I try
Right.
not to do that. So you really don't know, if he's going to play at all next week. And I mean, there's obviously potential that you could have healthy scratches for a game like that
Right.
against an FCS team, and they certainly could. It's easy to see them just playing it safe with anybody who's even remotely hurt. But we'll find out.
Yeah, the highlight guys for me in this game was the defense. Came in with the reputation of making splash plays. They had 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Aiden Fisher, 12 tackles. Just a really big game out of him. But just all around, other than that last drive of the first half, which I felt like they were conservative on that drive. They almost went into kind of a prevent look. Probably wouldn't have given that one up either. What stood out to you guys from the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say from the field, I mean, I think Signetti and Bryant Haynes mostly said they want their athletes to kind of, take over and just kind of fly around the field. And you can see that. I mean, Aiden Fisher and Jalen Walker, that linebacker duo, they are quick. And I think, Mike, it was you that tweeted out, I mean, Walker kind of looks kind of athletically like a defensive back, and they have him as a linebacker. So, I mean, that kind of group also made some plays. I think an area where it was kind of iffy with me was the defensive backs. FIU liked to get the ball out pretty quick, so maybe a few missed opportunities for the D line. I mean, they still ended the game with four sacks, but some crossing plays where the defensive backs were a little bit behind. That was a few open throws for FIU, but ultimately, I think they really showed that how much athleticism they have on that side of the field, and they had a really productive day for sure.
Honestly, I didn't even think the secondary was that. I thought the secondary played really well. Like the couple plays you're talking about with the crossing routes and everything. I mean, sometimes it's just good offensive design, and they clearly with the quarterback that FIU has, they like to run and they try to move everything really quickly, and that results in a lot of quick look pass play type things where you're getting the ball out really quickly and you're not just dropping back in the pocket and waiting for things to develop. And sometimes that can be hard for a defense to keep up with, and I think that's just good scheme. But for the most part, I mean, maybe one or two, but there were very few, and there weren't any major like lapses in coverage where you gave up a big play. And there were only a handful of times that people got beat. Period. When you're talking about one-on-one coverage on the outside, so I thought the defensive backs actually played really well, and the defensive line too. Like it felt early in the game, like they were kind of quiet. When the offense was playing well, I thought Indiana wasn't getting much in terms of pass rush, or Mikael Kamara was kind of quiet. Linnell, I literally said to the guy next to me in the press box at one point, I'm like, feels like Kamara's been really quiet. And then the very next play is when he and Linnell Carr teamed up for that play that resulted in the strip sack from Carr. And from there, I mean, CJ West made some good plays. James Carpenter was involved there, and obviously, we talked about Andrew Turvey a little bit in the press conference. That was a surprise to see him out there, but he was productive. And I thought really across all 3 levels, the defense played really well today.
Yeah. What did Coach Signetti say about Turvey? He was a guy that wasn't on my radar at all. I believe he's still a walk-on, unless they've made an update there. Why did he why was he able to kind of break through into the rotation and see the field for most of the second half?
Yeah, I mean, well, Signetti did say at the very beginning after he was asked about him that he is a walk on, but I mean, honestly, I mean, I noted it when I was going through the position by position previews before the season that the defensive line's depth was a little concerning and kind of a question mark. There wasn't a ton there. They weren't, you felt pretty good about the 4 or 5 guys they had at the kind of the top, but behind them there were a lot of major question marks, and you didn't really know what you had. So yes, I think it's definitely surprising to see and unexpected to see somebody like Turvey back there. But if you're saying there's one position on this team that someone like that is going to rise up and get some playing time, it would probably have been defensive line.
Right. And one more for you guys. I don't want to wear your arm out there, Seth, but
I've twitched a few times.
got a short week next week. We got an FCS opponent, Western Illinois, who we talked about is probably the worst team on the schedule for sure. Maybe the worst team in the FCS. What can this team, now that you've seen them play live once, what can they get out of a game like that before they have to go out to UCLA?
Well, I think Rourke kind of put it best, just finding that consistency. And Kurt Zanetti also said that, the playbook kind of changes from week to week. So I think they're going to try to find, something that works for them the best, prepare obviously for Western Illinois, but kind of maybe start the offensive preparations maybe a little bit for UCLA the week after and kind of run the offense that they want to run there. So I think you see that. And yeah, just mainly consistency and playing the whole 4 quarters.
And I'd add to that also, I think that a lot of what, a lot of the somewhat issues or things that you want to clean up from today with Indiana were self-inflicted. I think, they had 9 penalties for 80 yards today, and that is not necessarily dependent on the opponent. Like things like that, just kind of how clean of a game you're playing. And, Curtis Rourke admitted as much that, there are a few balls that he'd want back, both, just actual throws that he may have been a little bit short or a little bit long or, a little bit off on in terms of his actual throws, and just some reads that, he wishes he made another read or reads that he thinks he didn't make correctly. And while, yeah, you're going to get probably a lower level of defensive coverage against a team like Western Illinois, live game reps like that are really important, and just being able to clean things up that were a lot the self-inflicted wounds that they cleaned up. It's a good opportunity to kind of go in and say we're going to play as clean a game as possible, even if we're up 50-0 or whatever it could get to. Like the emphasis just has to be playing as clean a game as possible and just kind of setting that standard.
Okay, guys. Well, I appreciate it. For Seth Tao and Owen Graham in Bloomington, this is Mike Schumann, and we'll see you again on this episode next week. Talk to you guys later.